Hello and welcome everyone to OnPoint Technologies and PCM webinar today. We are thrilled to have you with us for IBM webinar, which is Build Your Trusted Data Lake. And to present on this topic, we have got Kyle Jones, who is Worldwide Sales Executive, Information Integration and Governance from IBM Analytics. We will be going right into our main presentation, but before that, we have got a few housekeeping items. Please remember to enter your questions in the question box on your right-hand side, and I will relay those to our speaker at the end of the presentation today. We do send out a survey at the end of presentation. Please fill it out and let us know how we did, as well as topic you'd like to see covered in the future. Speaking of future webinars, please be sure to check out weekly webinar schedule on our website at www.onpoint.com/webinars. We are also recording this session, which will be available for playback in the next few days. Recordings are posted to our webinar page along with our upcoming webinar schedule. And with that, we are going to go ahead and get started with the main presentation. I'm happy to hand it off to Kyle Jones.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Kyle Jones, and I'm a part of our worldwide sales team for information integration. I know that's a mouthful, and what that really means and where I really focus is primarily in and around IBM's data integration and governance software solutions. That includes things like your traditional ETL, data quality, governance, which I mentioned, and replication, really anything that has to do with data movement in general. We're going to be talking about building a trusted data lake today, and really what does a trusted data lake mean? And we'll talk about that and talk about how integration and governance relate to the data lake discussion and why customers that we're seeing in the marketplace are very focused on that piece of the data lake discussion. Because I think what we'll find out here is that it is very significant to the broader enterprise strategy, which encompasses the entire information supply chain. So going beyond just the data lake, but also bringing in your transactional databases, your data warehouses, any data marts that you might have, things like that. So we're really creating a true governed data ecosystem, and we start with the center of the governing the data lake here. So we can go to the next slide, and I think what this chart highlights is that this is really where a lot of customers still are. So as it pertains to the data lake and Hadoop and those types of initiatives that are top of mind. Again, this was a survey taken at the CIO Network Conference from last year. And we haven't seen an updated survey taken this year because that conference is in February, so we'll be sure to update that. But in and around all the buzzwords like data lake, Hadoop, open source, security is a big buzzword right now. But and I mean this in terms of a broader enterprises and broader IT teams. That at the root of it, these CIOs were focused on some primary components that make up the data quality and data governance discussion. So, if you look at the subcategories under the Wall Street Journal broke it down into these four main categories. I think we can only see three, but there's a fourth one underneath that is just understand data quality. But they're all centered around getting more value out of your data. Going beyond just the dashboards and the reports that we've all know and love and use on a daily basis. But it's the whole mindset of trying to achieve the whole garbage in, garbage out phenomenon and what that really means. And I think what we find is that it starts with governance. So if you jump to the next slide, Nolan. So as it pertains to governance, I've been saying this a few times, what I'm really talking about at the root of it is just creating business-ready data to your lines of business users. In simple terms, I know it's very simplified, but the business wants speed, and speed definitely matters. But we, from an IT perspective, you want to define the parameters in which you allow users to have access to data. Whatever that might be, whether it's a marketing analyst or a financial analyst. If we're not putting the right set of parameters in and around that data, it doesn't matter how quickly it gets to the line of business user, we could create problems for us down the line, and problems that are just, the types of problems that will never get solved from, just data cleanup, or, when a marketing analyst refers to an entity as a customer, does that mean the same thing to a financial analyst or a salesperson, or pick your line of business user? So if we're not speaking the same language, how do we know what that specific line of business is actually talking about? So those are the types of things that I'm kind of referring to here. So so how does that relate to a data lake? Well, if we move to the next slide, you can see that customers who have gone down this path that haven't addressed these types of needs are really struggling with their Hadoop projects. I mean, this is what we're seeing. And this statistic here that is linked to this in the presentation is that 80% of the time on these Hadoop projects and data lake projects is spent just on integrating the data and integrating it into their ecosystem. And the reason for that is, there's the tools that are offered into the open source community require a heavy usage of hand coding and development and writing scripts and things like that just to be able to integrate back to your ecosystem. And that's just getting the data moved. Forget about any type of governance or data quality that should be associated with that, especially if you as an organization are moving to a Hadoop platform. There's a good chance that you're likely storing information in that repository that you want to make the most use out of, get quality use. So how do we, from a governance perspective, make that available to our customers so that they can still load massive amounts of data, in all data types like unstructured data and things like that we've heard. But how do we still govern it at the end of the day and make it a truly enterprise strategy versus just a one-off, where we have, consider it just another data mart for somebody else that has a, this bright idea that it would be good to bring Hadoop into our enterprise. And this is what we're saying. We can create value and begin to speed those projects up through some of the solutions that IBM offers up. So let's talk about a couple of those. So move forward to the next slide, Noman, please. So if you're not familiar with IBM's solutions in general, let me just talk at a high level. So we have our open source, or excuse me, our Hadoop platform is called BigInsights. So it is still 100% the open source Hadoop framework, but we have added a lot of enhancements just in and around that framework to make it truly an enterprise strategy and an enterprise solution. And a couple of those components would be found in our BigIntegrate and BigQuality solutions. So if you're familiar with data stage or quality stage, it's very similar into what we're discussing here. In fact, it's the exact same code base, it's the same technology, same look and feel. The BigIntegrate and BigQuality is just an easier way to somewhat procure that software because it is a node-based model, which you typically see traditionally in the Hadoop world. So, BigIntegrate and BigQuality are just small pieces of our platform that we can offer up to bring huge value into building this trusted data lake. Number one, from the BigIntegrate side, it's the same engine that's found on our data stage, which we call it our parallel processing engine. And what this allows you to do is move basically massive amounts of data very, very quickly. We have some of the largest corporations in the world, Fortune 1 through 5 type companies that are using this software to move massive amounts of data. So, typically that's what we see in customers who are moving towards a Hadoop strategy is, yeah, they're starting small, but they have goals to be able to move large volumes of data into the Hadoop platform, and they want to automate that process and really, truly operationalize that. By the way, at the same time, they also want to be able to leverage the metadata that's being generated through those basically ETL jobs so that they can provide data lineage reports or visualize that back and leverage the metadata that is found so that they can trust the data and understand the source systems and where that data is coming from. And that's really where we find the value in these types of solutions when we're talking about integration and governance and building a trusted data lake. So, ease of use, speed, scalability, all of those are the buzzwords that we see found when customers are combining our software solutions with this Hadoop strategy. So, and then the big quality side is really focused on data quality. So data profiling, classifying, cleansing, and even monitoring where you can create these rules and create KPIs more or less so that you can have data quality be more or less an ongoing project as you're bringing in new source databases or source systems in general, so that we know that if the cursor's moving to the red and to the negative on the data quality front, that we can take action and take action quickly so that we're not deviating from our overall strategy, which is providing a trusted integration platform and governed platform for our line of business in this project. So, and I think, yeah, so just to talk about this is just purely a picture, but there's some points that I did want to make. So IBM has really made a huge focus into contributing to our open source community from not just Hadoop, but in and around the Hadoop world and really the whole open source world, and it includes things like Spark. And we've also spent a large amount of money investing into the contributions that we've made to be able to make these types of solutions that are lightweight, low cost, available to enterprise customers. So we're very committed to this space, and especially from our more enterprise class software that we have traditionally seen, we're on a mad dash to make sure that all of it is equally compatible and able to be reverse engineered back into the open source community. So, especially as our new releases that are coming out with things like I mentioned, BigIntegrate and BigQuality, and our data stage platform as well, is we are making sure that we're focused in and around the open source connectivity and streamlining that process for the customers who are going down that path. So just to talk a little bit about the platform itself and how you can essentially deploy it and why it makes sense is really because our value is in, like I mentioned, the scalability, but also the shared architecture that we have between our integration solutions, our data quality solutions, and our information governance solutions. And you're not going to find another integration vendor or provider that has these three key elements all on the same architecture. Some of our biggest competitors, who I'm sure you're very aware of, they operate with basically different engines amongst the whatever task that is to be done, whether it's a data quality task, so they'll have a data quality engine. If it's a ETL task, they'll have a data integration engine. So, we are able to scale up not just from an architecture standpoint by easily adding on these other elements so that you can start small as a customer if you just want to focus on the integration side. And maybe you are still in a traditional data warehouse type approach, but eventually you could see yourself going down the Hadoop path. We have ways that we can start introducing you into these solution sets so that you can become familiar with them and start leveraging them today. And then when you're ready to move to Hadoop or this data lake concept is, you can easily just, for lack of better terminology, pick those up and run those within Hadoop rather than just on your traditional engine. So, and what that does is it speeds up performance for the amount of data that we're able to process as well. So scalability from an architecture standpoint, but also scalability from a data volume standpoint. So, we want to make sure that as the volumes increase, that we're processing that data in our tools. And if you look at some of these other providers, we have listed Informatica, Talon, Pentaho, some of these other niche providers that are popping up. Informatica is not a niche, but they are traditionally our best competitor. Their default is to push the processing workloads down into the database or the data warehouse, and that's not the best approach all the time. Especially, it's not the right approach at all when you're talking about building a data lake or using a Hadoop repository. Hadoop is designed to be just a repository where you can just throw all kinds of data into it and then report off of that. Some of the older data warehouse appliances would make up for that and allow that data to be transformed and processed in the actual database. But that's just not that's not a good approach for Hadoop because it's not designed for that, and none of the frameworks today, whether it's Cloudera, Hortonworks, or IBM for that matter, have the ability to transform that data. So, meaning if you're increasing the data volumes and you're trying to push that processing down into the Hadoop repository, you're going to naturally have performance issues. So then you're going to have to add other things like, now what are we doing with our infrastructure and storage, and how are we balancing these jobs? And so when we talk about scalability from a data volume standpoint, that's what we mean. We really want to process that in the tool. And so, I highlight that in the next slide, Naman, if you want to go there as well. But, speed to market, complete confidence in your data, that comes back to the built-in governance. Whether you're using the visualization aspect of looking into your metadata to understand the lineage and the impact analysis, whether you're using that or not, that gets captured into our metadata repository, and which it doesn't just have to be tied to the data integration metadata, if you will. You can import other metadata that has nothing to do or is not even in the architecture path for these these integration tools. So that's where we really talk about building in a true enterprise governance strategy that starts with governance, but it definitely has the ability to be open and pull in the Hadoop metadata as well. So because this is a critical component of governance in general, we recognize that, so we want to have that compatibility. And then the highest level of productivity. So we've got thousands of pre-built functions for all kinds of connectivity, all kinds of data sources and targets that speed up the overall development process, so that whether that's through a native connector or just a JDBC driver or something like that, we can absolutely connect to most anything and everything that is available in the market. Occasionally I see something that is new, but typically we can still just connect to it through just a standard driver. So let's move to the next slide and We definitely have a lot of customers who are, this slide's a little fuzzy. I was trying to fix it last minute, so I apologize for that. Don't worry, your eyesight's not going bad, or maybe mine is, but this is just a quick example of some customers who are going down this path that are using our tools. And so you can see some of the statistics that they have. In this first one, this retailer that's got a 4,000 node Hadoop cluster, they're basically on a mission to replace their entire data warehouse platform. Now they have a pretty big platform today, but they want to replace it with Hadoop. And so they want to be able to, they can't sit here and spend the time to develop all these scripts in Scoop or Pig or something like that, and one of these open source tools that you may have heard. They need something that's ready now and can move data quickly and can handle massive volumes of data. So, that's one example. We have another automobile manufacturer that is going down this path as well. The largest Australian telco company is building out a grid on all of their Hadoop nodes as well. And then one of our most recent wins was a major U.S. insurance company that was actually standardized on one of those competitors that you saw a couple pages ago. And just to be completely transparent, they were not wanting to include IBM in the proof of concept, mainly because they felt like they thought we would be too expensive, which we can always work around things like that. But at the end of the day, after actually going through the proof of concepts, they realized that they couldn't get around the lack of performance that they were seeing in these proof of concepts with some of these other three vendors. And again, one of them was the standard that is in there now for their data warehouse. So we now are implementing in their Hadoop cluster, and that is purely because of some of the things that I've already mentioned. The scalability of with the amount of data that we can actually process, and ease of use and not having to go off and learn how to code in some open source tool that is available. So, and then the next slide shows a couple of referenceable customers that we can talk to. So, Sone was actually our first customer, they're based out of Portugal, but they do a lot of reference calls for us. They had a similar story. They were not really looking at IBM, and mainly because they didn't think that we had compatibility with Cloudera, which we actually do. So that's one unique thing that we can offer up. We are open in the fact that we can connect natively on any Hadoop distribution that's in the market today. And so whether it's Cloudera, Hortonworks, or something else, we can absolutely still provide a trusted integration and governance platform regardless of distribution. Here are a couple key use cases that we're seeing as well with the Hadoop strategy. So, I'm sure, I won't read these off, but I'm sure some of these might resonate to you. I think one of the most common one that we're seeing for customers who are really just trying to get started is warehouse offloading. So, data warehouse offloading. So they want to introduce Hadoop in the form of a way of archiving, and so in that type of approach, they don't want to, again, spend the time to have to develop something new where they're just introducing it in, and so they want to be able to use enterprise technologies that are available to them to govern that back into their overall ecosystem. So even if it's just offloading the warehouse, they still want to maintain a true governed platform going back to the overall information supply chain for the whole ecosystem for the organization. So, so I've mentioned, just to talk a little bit about what we actually have. I mentioned these already, but BigIntegrate and BigQuality are specific for Hadoop. The information server solutions that you see here on the left-hand side are more or less targeted for customers who may not be using Hadoop, but we still have embedded the connectivity into those solutions as well. So now you may be asking, why would we use one against the other? Well, it's really just a cost discussion at this point. You know, like I mentioned earlier, these are the technology is exactly the same, the code's the same, the look and feel, everything's exactly the same. The difference is with the Hadoop-focused offerings, because we're saying customers can only use those offerings if it's targeting a Hadoop environment or leveraging, you know, the Hadoop framework in the data flow. Then there's a, you know, it's a cheaper upfront cost option because it's a node-based model, but it's also more in line since it is a restricted version of what we offer. You know, we're offering at a significant discount. So there's basically, point of this, there's two ways that customers can get started. That's either through our standard information server platform or BigIntegrate and BigQuality. And I've already highlighted a lot of this is repetitive, but same differentiators, you know, fast ingest and processing within Hadoop. Complete confidence in your data because, again, we're using the same enterprise class technologies that you would in and around building out a data warehouse as the same as you would for a Hadoop platform, and then the highest level of productivity with the amount of pre-built functions that we offer. Whether it's BigIntegrate or information server, we can help you. And with that, I think the next slide is where I will open it up for some questions. I know we moved fast and moved quickly, but definitely wanted to leave some time for questioning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kyle. That was a great presentation. And all on the line, if we have got any questions, please remember to enter them in the question box, and I will relay those over to Kyle. So Kyle, we have got the first question. Why IBM over other integration solutions?
Yeah, so thanks, Noman. I know I think I mentioned it a couple times. You know, what we're finding with some of our existing conversations that we have today. You know, I just mentioned the customer, the insurance customer that did not invite IBM initially to participate in the proof of concept because they felt like we'd be too costly. That is a common misconception, surprisingly, and even some of the third-party analysts still continue to hit us on that. But we're very competitive at the end of the day because of how we license, especially with our new node-based license model. It's very, very cost-efficient. So, but it comes back to scalability and you know, the ability to process large volumes of data without having to hand code or anything like that, and then scalability from an architecture standpoint, meaning you can start with just the integration, and then 6 months later you can add the governance elements and the data quality elements in to be a part of your overall platform so that you're providing a true trusted data lake.
Thank you so much, Kyle. The second question I have is, does IBM have an open distribution regardless of Hadoop?
Yep, we do. So, you know, BigInsights is, of course, that's the IBM answer, I should say. If you are looking at a Hadoop project and haven't yet decided on a framework, definitely take a look at BigInsights. There's a lot of add-on enhancements that that we've done with things like Big R and Big SQL, which I won't go into very much, but that's IBM's homegrown Hadoop framework, but we also definitely support the latest versions of Hortonworks, Cloudera, and all the other major distributions that are available today. So yes, we are very open.
Thank you so much, Kyle. The last question I can see is, can IBM solution run natively?
Yes, yeah. So I believe that's run natively in Hadoop. So yeah, we came out in version, our latest version is version 11.5. We have our next major releases later this year. But in version 11.5, we made the capability, or we came out with the capability to install directly in Hive, meaning you can install directly into the Hadoop cluster versus just having it sit on its own engine and just be a, just pass the data through from a target or a source standpoint. So it can actually sit in the target environment of the Hadoop cluster, which we've seen just in our own labs. It increases performance by about 50%. So yes, definitely a huge advantage that customers can take advantage of, and that's actually one of the main reasons why, when it comes to speed in processing data, why we've been able to outperform some of our other major competitors.
Okay, thank you so much. I cannot see any more questions in the questions box, but still, if you have got any questions after the webinar, please email us at amec@onpoint.com. And with that, thank you so much, Kyle, for a great presentation. And thank you all for joining in today. We hope to see you for future webinars. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you very much.